Offensively, Dan does a really good job with the quarterback. He's an outstanding play caller. Kyle Trask has taken over for, unfortunately, Felipe Franks was injured, but has done a really good job. He makes, accurate with the football. He threw for over 300 yards Saturday night in Baton Rouge, but makes decisive decisions, gets the ball out quick. He's got arm talent, and just very impressed with what he has done and accomplished. His first game against Tennessee, first drive of the game, takes him right down the field and scores. So been very impressed with him. LaMichael Pirine, the running back, has got a strong lower body. Runs through contact, is a violent runner. Been very impressed with him, and Pearson and Davis are good backs as well. A very talented, big, and experienced group at the receiver position. Jefferson and Frankie Hammond, or excuse me, Josh Hammond. I coached his brother Frankie. Swain, all those guys, Grimes, Cleveland, all guys that have played a lot of football, really understand what they're doing offensively. And emergence of Kyle Pitts at tight end, which is kind of a hybrid tight end receiver, but has been very productive for him. He's leading them in reception and big and athletic on the offensive line. Defensively, Todd Grantham does a great job. Todd and I have been friends for a long time, and I think if you talk in terms of havoc on the football, probably Florida leads the country just as far as batted balls, interceptions. He does a great job of creating issues for you offensively. And Zaninga and Grenard are two guys that have been very productive for him at the defensive end positions. They're solid in the middle. And then C.J. Henderson and Marco Wilson are two outstanding corners, as good of corners we'll see this year that can really cover and lock down outside. So, really good players and very talented specialists. Tommy Townsend is an outstanding punter, and McPherson's done a good job for him kicking the football. But injury-wise, Ryan practiced today. I think he'll be fine for Saturday, and really we don't have any other injury situations as far as that's concerned, so I'll open up for any questions.
Well, with Ryan, he moved around well today, not wearing any extra brace or
no, he wore a brace, but he'll be fine.
And also with the carry on being the backup now, does he work any more receivers?
We've focused on quarterback at this time. Yep, sure have, and that's since he's been back. As far as what's best for our football team and him right now is just to solely get those reps. Mm-hmm.
Have you faced Dan as much as you faced any other play caller, offensive guy in your career, you think?
Well, I've only probably 06 and 07 when I was at Auburn and he was at Florida, and then 16 when we were here at South Carolina and he was at Mississippi State.
Auburn, the Auburn year, the 1 year at Auburn.
And then 1 year at Auburn in 15. At Auburn. And then 16 here, and then last year. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say as much. I was Jim Chaney. There's a lot of guys that have been in our league for a long time. How does
preparation differ from a guy that you're really familiar with, as you both, I imagine, sort of tweak and react to what the other guy did?
I just think Dan does a really good job of presenting issues. I think he sees the game from a defensive perspective, meaning knows that there's some issues with different looks that he can give you. The run game is the run game, and their passing game is the pass game, but how they manipulate and get to those looks are going to be different each week. It's kind of like, preparing a little bit from a standpoint of the best example I could give you is they're going to get to this run. I don't know how they're going to get to it, but I know they're going to get to it. So whatever window dressing's created on game day, our players need to be able to adjust, and we need to adjust as a staff.
The way they ran the ball in the second half last year, was that a scheme issue or was that a fatigue issue?
No, I think it was both. I think schematically we weren't as gap sound as we needed to be, and we've tried to rectify those issues. And we weren't as good as we needed to be defensively, personnel wise, at that time of the season.
Did you play more nickel than you, or 4-3? Do you remember in that game?
Probably 50-50. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hey, well, I think Lou Holtz once said that you never get the same 18, 19-year-olds from week to week. I'm wondering how you approach sort of winning on the road, big game against Georgia, and then having your guys flush it the next week, getting back to Florida. How do you make sure that your guys do that?
Well, I told the team this morning, in life generally you don't always get what you want, but generally you get what you deserve. And if you prepare right, and you prepare the right way, and you watch film the right way, and you work out and you practice the right way, and you have the right kind of preparation and focus leading into game day, and then all of that comes to fruition on game day, and you play well on game day, then you deserve the right, not saying you will, but you deserve the right to have the opportunity to win the game. If you don't prepare the right way and you bask in something that happened in your past and you think about that and not think about the present and now, then you don't deserve that right. So there's a difference between wanting something to happen and deserving it to happen, in my opinion. Every week is a season here. We have certain things that we talk about all the time. Leave no doubt's been in our locker room from day one. Leave no doubt about your energy, your effort, your toughness, your discipline, your team first mentality, and the opportunity. You've got to earn it every single day. We have certain things that we talk about all the time in our organization, and every week's a season for us. We're going to pour our guts into Florida and hopefully create the opportunity to have the right to win on game day.
Well, Florida kind of rotates in two different quarterbacks back
Yeah.
there. Just how do you go about preparing for that in practice? Is it just putting a running back in there at scout team quarterback if they have a mobile guy, or how does that kind of go?
Well, we're short some guys as far as having guys that could simulate that. To be honest with you, so it's a lot of recognition by our players and obviously our staff of who is in the game. They don't change a lot. They really don't. There's quarterback run game with both guys, Kyle and Emery, and there's throw game with both guys. There's not a lot of drastic changes as far as what they do offensively when each guy's in the game, in my opinion. So I think just understanding who's there and in the situation.
Will, you've probably coached a lot of great defensive backs who don't get 3 interceptions in their career. Yeah. When Israel does something like that, is it because he's in the right positions? Does he have good hands? What comes with a game like that?
Well, I think I'd go back on the first interception. Javon Kinlaw he and Dennis Wanham a great pressure to the throwing hand of the quarterback, and that created duress. The ball was floated. Israel made a fantastic play on the ball and obviously returned it for a touchdown. Probably the best interception was the back shoulder ball, which is obviously some sort of miscommunication with the receiver and quarterback, and I don't know whose fault it was, but to be able to play that ball and make that interception was a pretty fantastic play. I take him through those interception drills every day, and I think he's really learned a lot from me. I'm kidding. It's called talent. So it's overcoming coaching is what I say. But and then the last one was a tip ball, being in the right spot. And the ball was Jake threw it exactly where it was supposed to be, and the guy needs to catch the football. And he didn't, and he was in the right place at the right time.
I'm sure you've coached some great defensive lines in your time. Where does this one stack up?
We'll reflect when the season's over about how we do. We need to continue to be consistent in what we're doing. And I think that Kobe and Javon have both been very consistent. I think Dennis Wanham and has been very consistent. And we've got to continue to come on with the other guys. Aaron's playing well. JJ, Danny Fennell played well Saturday. The progress that Rick Sandage and Zach Pickens have made, I've been very impressed with. We need to get Jabari Ellis more involved in that front, and he certainly is a guy that's more than capable to help us.
How much do those younger guys, feed off somebody like Kinlaw when he's playing at such a high level?
Well, I think that number one, it starts at practice and how guys prepare in the film room, and that's the thing that I've seen Javon take his game to the next level as far as off the field preparation, nutrition, eating the right way, working out in the weight room, in the film room, watching film, studying his opponent, coming into us on a Monday and say, hey man, I really like the matchup here. When you get that kind of back and forth from the player, that's really important. And when a young player can see that and see the buy-in of what it takes to be a really good player, it's not just about ability and it's not just about talent. It takes a lot of things off the field to be successful in our league. And that's where, to me, that he's made the next step. And Kobe continues to get better, played his best game there on Saturday, in my opinion, since he's been at South Carolina. But for those players to see the right example of the right way to do things is huge in your program. When you start talking in terms of culture, you start talking about tradition, and to be able to see those things instead of a coach saying it and a player says it, then it means a lot more.
There were times through the first quarter of the season where you were upset with your secondary, tackling, coverage, things of that nature. How dramatically different do you feel about that group, especially after the way they played the last 2 games?
Well, and I'd probably – there were some spots in the Missouri game a little bit because of snaps, but the last 3 ball games we've improved and gotten better each week, and we've got to continue to improve. We've got another huge challenge in front of us with this group Saturday. I mean, they're very talented on the perimeter, and they've got a quarterback that's playing extremely well, so in a back that's very difficult to tackle. So we've improved, but we've always got room for improvement to continue to grow and get better.
Will, with another noon game, I know some fans might not be thrilled about it, but your players felt like they're at an advantage since you guys do practice early. As a coach and even as a former player, do you feel like there is a benefit of being able to get a game going on pretty early on, and what are those advantages?
Well, we're up every morning. I mean, all of our guys are in the building by 6:30 and fired up about practice and meetings and all that stuff, So, but we look forward to it. We look forward to a noon kick. Any opportunity we get to play in Williams-Brice, our guys will be excited about it.
A few days after watching DeCarrion do what he did against Georgia, what do you feel like you learned about him watching him thrown in there in that kind of situation?
I fully expected him to play extremely well. I fully expected him to take command of our offense. I fully expected him to do exactly what he did and help us win a football game.
What does it say about him as a kid that he was ready to do that?
Well, I mean, he's got natural leadership ability. He positively affects people around him. That's who he is as a person, and I think that you can develop that to a certain degree, but some people have what I call the it factor, and he has the it factor as far as those things are concerned, in my opinion.
Well, what has Donnell Stanley meant to you as an anchor on the offensive line, as kind of a leader to those young quarterbacks this year?
Well, Donnell has just been – I think back in 2016, our first game. I think it was on the first play of the game against Vanderbilt. He has the ankle injury, which is a pretty severe injury. They put the ankle cord surgery. He plays, I think, it's the next 8 to 10 snaps, and there's no way he probably could have been standing up. He's got great toughness. He has outstanding leadership ability. He's a really good football player, but he's even a better person off the field. And he's one of the guys I really lean on this football team as far as to gauge where we are from fatigue, to gauge where we are mindset-wise, to gauge how things are going. And that's really important as a coach to have, and I've got multiple guys to have that in a leader on our football team that's going to be honest with me and tell me like it is, whether I want to hear it or not, and I really appreciate him for that.
Well, when you guys decided to go 4-3 for your base defense, how did that meeting go? Was it you and T-Rob? Did somebody bring it up? Just how did that decision come about?
Sitting by myself in the Missouri locker room, figuring out what we need to do to get better, and that was just in my mind, knowing that Sherrod Green has played better than the other guys we were putting in the game at the time, and we need to adapt some things defensively and make some adjustments.
Did you come in Sunday and say, this
is what we're doing?
How do you balance allowing Helinski's need to get better, getting enough reps to be ready for Florida, and are you adjusting the amount of reps that DeCarrion gets as a second-team guy?
Absolutely, and I think that but that's really kind of up to our medical staff. They tell me what they think he can and can't do, and then we've got to obviously ask Ryan, and he just got to be honest with us and tell us, this is what I feel good about, and this is what I feel like I can do and what I can't do. So those are things we'll continue to gauge as the week moves on, but we feel pretty good where he is right now.
Well, as most of your Florida players have, gone on to graduate or, gone on to the NFL, has it gotten easier for you, you think, to play them, moving forward?
No, because they got a good team. Again, it is what it is. I got 3 brothers down there. Tommy's the punters. I coached his brother Johnny, and the Townsend family, and then you got Marco. We coached Quincy, and I remember sitting in the living room there with Chad and Carmen down in South Florida, and Marco was about that tall in the living room there. And they've got all their athleticism from Carmen, not the dad Chad, that's for sure. He played at Miami, and then Frankie Hammond, Josh's brother. What a great play in 2012. We're up there at Knoxville, and Jeff threw a curl right there to Frankie and broke 2 tackles and took it about 65 yards for a touchdown. Huge win for us. But, again, at the end of the day, I had a wonderful experience there, but I'm glad we're at South Carolina and looking forward to game day. They got a good team, so it's always hard.
It seems like from a reading recognition standpoint, your defense is playing faster right now the last couple of games. Would you agree with that? And if so, what's kind of made it that way?
John, I think that I don't know that necessarily we did too much, but I think we have narrowed some things down that we feel like our players do extremely well, and when our players feel comfort. And I think there's sometimes as a coach, you need to be able to take input from your players. And I think that myself, number one, and our staff, number two, have done a really good job of, identifying what our players feel comfortable playing. And again, it all goes back, in my opinion, to comfort level as a player, and whether it's playing quarters, playing 3 deep, playing man to man, pressure situations, what pass rush do we like, all of those things, and I think our players have identified some things that they feel more comfortable with in playing with, and then the comfort level, you're going to play faster. And instead of thinking, you're reacting. And you've got to do that on defense. You start thinking on defense with the speed that we face week in, week out, you'll get burned.
This has nothing to do with the Florida game per se, but given the fact who has won the Bobby Dodd Trophy over the years, to be up for it after yesterday's announcement, your thoughts on that?
Well, I credit our staff and our players. That's the bottom line. As a head coach, you get way too much credit when there's a big win. There's a lot of people that obviously contributed to that to that game, and I really appreciate all of them.
Catapult numbers told you that you guys had 14 guys that hit their max speed in the fourth quarter or overtime against Georgia. What does that say about this team's conditioning midway through the season?
Well, I think we've been really, we hadn't, other than maybe a handful of issues cramp-wise all season. I think we had a really good summer as far as conditioning was concerned. In those situations, I've felt that way all through the season. I think the breakdowns we've had didn't have anything to do with the conditioning, in my opinion, especially early in the year with some of the inconsistencies we played with. But I think we've had good strength gains in the weight room. We've had strength gains during the season in the weight room, and I think Jeff and his staff have done a fantastic job.
Sorry to pull you back to your Florida tenure for a second, but what are your memories of your last game as Florida's coach against South Carolina? What are the things that stick with you from that day?
We got a punt blocked. I appreciate you bringing it up. No, I had a punt blocked, had a field goal blocked there in a situation. It's amazing when we talk about situational football all the time. I'm trying to remember exactly time. It was right under a minute or right above a minute in the game. Ball was on about the 42, 43-yard line. We had always talked in terms of game situations of taking a safety slow, but there was too much time left on the clock, and obviously you got a guy like Fayro back there returning. We felt like we needed to get in some sort of coverage unit situation, knowing that they were going to sell out for the block. But those are the two things that jump in my head. Not taking the quarterback, Dylan Thompson, on a freaking zone read. How about that? Seeing him run in the end zone.
Javon Kinlaw is not the kind of guy who is going to boast about himself. He's kind of bashful in front of us. Do you think he realizes the kind of impact he's had with his play this year, and how do you get the max impact out of him each week?
Just challenging him each week to be consistent. Consistency is really, really important as you continue to move forward in your career, and that's something that I think he's really challenged himself to be a consistent guy, to be a great practice guy every single day out. To put the work in, to have the right to play well on game day, to win the game. So, and I think that's something that his consistency has been very evident throughout the first 6 games of the year, and he's got to continue that.
Will, after the game on ESPN, you hit upon it a little bit, talking about the impact Joyner has been able to do and just how proud you are of him. What message do you think that sends to some of these other guys in terms of, I know he's only been here for 2 years, but some of these younger guys that are still coming up through it and just being able to be ready because, like you guys talk about all the time, next man up? Well,
you never know when your number's going to be called. That's the bottom line. And it says something about, obviously, his Tika mama and Lamonta's stepdad, they're great people, and been raised right, and he has all the leadership ability you want, and to be able to have the loyalty to the University of South Carolina, to stick it out and see how things are going to go, and not every time adversity strikes, take your ball and go home. And unfortunately, in our society, that's a little bit about what's happening now. And my hat's off to Kyle Trask. Here's a guy that went through a coaching change and didn't win the job, and was a graduate, could have transferred, could have been eligible immediately somewhere else, and stuck it out. And all of a sudden, he's got an opportunity to be a starting quarterback. So, again, it says a lot about those guys and their character.
Will, Brian, Shy, your tight ends have all played great. Is it bothersome to you that you haven't really found that third wide receiver? Do you really need one at this point?
Yeah, we've got to continue to progress in the passing game, and that certainly is going to be able to develop for us. I think Kyle Markway's played extremely well the last 2 seasons, and I think Nick Muse's emergence and matchup issues. Because when he's in the game, are we in an attached set, and are you going to stay in base personnel, or are you going to go to nickel personnel? That helps us call the game, obviously. And he creates issues in the slot. He made a heck of a catch on third down the other night. So he's been a guy that's continued to progress, especially just showing up August 1 to start camp and learning the offense. But there's no question that Chavis Dawkins has done some really nice things for us. Josh Van had a couple nice runs in the last 2 ball games. But we've got to continue. Xavier Leggette's a young guy that we keep bringing along, is doing some good job for us on special teams. So we've got to continue to develop there, yeah.
And where is Ortre in that? Is that knee?
Yeah, you know what? Ortre's fine. He's the knees. That was a very serious surgery, and he's also had a little bit of a hamstring. He got dinged in the the Kentucky game, I believe it was, or the Missouri game with the shoulder. He didn't miss any time. He practiced, and he's pushing through it. And he's a really good football player. And you think back to his first year when he was healthy, and how he played for us, and he played big time for us, and we expect that to continue to evolve as we move forward. But when you do have a serious surgery like he had, it's a setback a little bit, and I think it set him back. And he's not as fast as he wants to be at times, but it's a process you've got to work through, and he continues to work through it. And we need for him to continue to come on, and I know he wants to.
Marcus Lattimore will be inducted into the Hall of Fame Thursday night. What has he meant to your program?
Wow, I don't know how much time you have, but just probably a lot of things I don't see, and then a large majority of things that I do see, and how he positively affects everyone in that locker room. And his office is right there by our nutrition hub, where all of our players eat breakfast in the morning, and all of our players eat lunch before they leave the building. Every time I walk by his office, there's a player or 2 or 3 or 4 sitting in his office talking to him, whether it's about adversity, something going on at home, or just talking. So many of the things that he has done in our state, number one, but in our community, for the University of South Carolina, and promoting the University of South Carolina and the Gamecock brand, and how he represents us in a first-class manner. But for me personally, a great friendship that I've developed with Marcus, and just how much he's made a difference in this program as a player, obviously, but moving forward as a mentor to a lot of people in this building.
It seems like this through this season, your guys' tackling has improved a good bit. What kind of goes into that? How hard is that to, in season, improve tackling to that level? And have you seen, do a lot of teams get that kind of turnaround, or are those relatively rare?
I wish, I think I said it after the game, I wish I could tell you there's some fancy drill that we've done that's helped us tackle better. But we work on tackling every single day, every single practice. I think some guys have willed themselves to improve a little bit, to want to stick their face in the fan, so to speak, and like it, and wrap up and have the proper technique and kind of buy into that part of it. But again, I don't know. That's something we work on a lot. We worked on throughout training camp every single day. And I think guys have maybe understanding of angles and scheme and where they are on the ball and those sort of things. We played really good backs in our last 2 ball games. So we got to continue to improve. And you're only as good as your last outing, and we'll have another opportunity on Saturday.
I know that he wasn't able to travel with you to Georgia, but how different is it having Jake here for Ryan and to carry on both after the game that they had this week?
He's in every meeting, and his experience as a freshman, his experience in 3 years has certainly been beneficial for the entire room, as far as both Ryan, DeCarrion, and Jay, as far as guys that, this is what I see and this is what we've been, and this happened to me, and I went through that, and it's easier when you have a peer to talk to as opposed to a coach, in my opinion.
Say recruits don't choose a school based on one game, but what can a win against a top 5 team like Georgia do on the recruiting trail in terms of just showing progress and things like that?
Well, I think what you just said, the word is progress. You keep talking about, doing some great things and trying to. Sometimes they've got to see the results. They've got to see that progress. So I think the word you said is best, is progress. You've seen some progress to be able to go beat a really good team on the road. Mm-hmm.
Will, speaking about Jake again, how's his progress going, his recovery, and is there any change to that timetable where maybe in a bowl situation, he may find himself out?
No, I don't know about that. The timetable I've been told was non-weight bearing for 3 months, and that obviously would put him out of any bowl game situation, and really not being cleared from anywhere from 5 to 6 months as far as fully cleared for activity with the Liz Frank. So that's what I would know.
Well, you just talked about the importance of being able to show recruits the progress that you're making. What about for some of your younger guys and maybe even some of your veterans who are, down about the way the season has been going, but after knocking off a third-ranked Georgia team on the road, what effect will it have?
Well, I think that, you don't win that game unless you have belief in the organization and you have belief in the coaching staff, you have belief in what you're doing. There's no way you have a chance to overcome adversity on the road against a really good football team. So that's resonated within our team. I do agree that with young players, because they start wondering a little bit about the process and how this works, and I'm not playing much. How is this going to go? I'm going to go into the all-season program, and these coaches aren't exactly the same guys that recruited me. I mean, all of that's going through their mind, and that's part of it. And then when they're able to be a part of something like that, they say, okay, this is why we practice the way we practice. I understand now why we do these drills. I understand now why we actually have to watch film. I mean, then you kind of help yourself as far as the message is concerned with your football team.
Miranda was hurt. Just what kind of a presence was he on the sideline? What kind of a personality was he there, even though he, was sitting kind of back a little bit for most of it?
I was kind of focused on the field at the time.
Will, you had Ellis on your analyst staff for a while, and I'm sure you're pleased with the folks that you have there now. But at some point, would you ever like to get an older veteran sage type guy on offense that could maybe help a young coordinator?
Yeah, Dan Warner, who's our quarterback coach, has done a really nice job for us.
I mean, as an analyst, like some of these teams have these, former head coaches, et cetera.
And with all due respect, more's not better for me. We've got a lot of really good ideas in the room, and we've got a lot of really good coaches in the room, and I like where we are at this time. And obviously, I'm always in evaluation of what we do, and where we are, and what we need to do to improve in all three phases, in the recruiting part of it, the PR standpoint of it. I mean, I'm in constant evaluation of our program, but we're always looking to improve and get better. Sure. All righty, thank you.